Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. How are you all doing? Hopefully really good. I'm feeling really happy. I had an amazing weekend. The weather was fantastic, 75 and sunny. I spent time with one of my best girlfriends and her daughter, and we explored nature, we talked, we laughed. We stayed busy. We went out for margaritas. Little one that's 9 years old had a virgin daiquiri. It was just so fun. And then someone paid for our meal, our dinner. It was just incredibly sweet. And it was a couple, and it was just a really neat experience. So I'm having an amazing week, and I hope that you guys are too, and that it's beautiful wherever you are. So this week, we're going to be talking about why it's important to take radical responsibility. I think that I've talked a little bit about radical responsibility on some, select episodes of the podcast, but I was scrolling through my episodes today and realized I don't actually have an episode solely on radical responsibility. And this is a super important thing for you guys to know, because this is a lot of times the reason that we feel like we're out of control is because we place our results in the hands of others, and sometimes unintentionally, and we don't even realize it. So I wanted to talk about it on the podcast today because I think that after you listen to this episode, if you really apply it, you're going to feel like you have a lot more control in your life, and that's ultimately what's required to create change. So years ago, I was listening to a podcast, and it was titled Blame versus Responsibility, and I have to tell you guys that it really impacted me. It changed me forever after listening to it. I was early on in my mindset work and definitely not an expert at that point. It was just someone listening and taking in the information and doing what I could with it. And as you guys know, your mind is responsible for everything that you do or do not do. Your mind is responsible for everything that you think, everything that you feel. Your mind is responsible. So if you can learn how to master your mind, you can create anything and everything you want in life. I promise you, anything and everything that you want in life is a direct result of how well you're managing your mind. So if you're exactly where you want to be in your life, congratulations. It's your mind that got you there. It's helped you arrive to where you're at today. And if you are not exactly happy with where you're at and you desire more and you want more and you desire to become even better than you are, which is a fundamental human need. We love growth. So if you desire more, it's not being selfish to desire that. It means that you're trying to step into new versions of yourself, and that requires intensive mindset work at times, because again, our mind loves to be comfortable and it loves to sabotage us, because anything that we do that's different from our day-to-day routine feels like we're dying to our mind, to our brain. It says, oh gosh, this is not the regular scheduled program. We're definitely dying. And then the anxiety starts, and it just becomes a circus of self-sabotage. So a mind left alone with itself that is not managed by personal development, coaching, counseling, therapy, whatever, is going to run around like a 2-year-old with scissors or a knife in their hand, unattended. And I have definitely been able to witness this in my life. When I am working with a coach, I am very focused. I do not spend a lot of time in self-sabotaging thoughts and patterns and behaviors, as long as when I'm not working with a coach. When I am left with my own mind, I can manage it. I listen to podcasts, I can read the books, but I have to tell you guys that having another human say, whoa, check yourself before you wreck yourself, is super duper helpful. And I think that that is why therapy and coaching is like the best thing possible, because you have like a sounding board. You have someone that's hearing the craziness that might be coming out of your mouth because your mind is being totally rude, and they're able to help you use that energy in a functional way that's much more beneficial than the opposite. So sometimes when we're left alone with ourselves, we don't really get that far. So in talking about this blame and responsibility, I was listening to this podcast, and like I said, you all know from listening to this podcast, hopefully by now, unless this is your very first episode. If so, welcome. I have to say, if you go back further to the beginning, this what I'm about to say today will probably make more sense, but it's okay if you haven't. Your mindset, right? What thoughts you think in your mind create the feelings you're going to have in your body. The feelings that you get in your body create the action that you will or will not take. So based on how you're feeling, you're going to either A, take an action, or you're not going to take an action because you feel like, a lot of times if we feel like crap, we don't take action. If we're feeling really good, we do take action. So think of it that way. And whatever actions you do or do not take creates the result that you're going to get in life. So thoughts, right? Start with your thoughts. Your thoughts create the feelings in your body. The feelings in your body create the action you do or do not take, and the actions that you do or do not take lead to your results. Now, where does all of this come from? It comes from our circumstances. So every single one of us have circumstances. We have circumstances thousands of times a day, right? If your car breaks down, that's a circumstance. If someone says something mean to you, that's a circumstance. If someone, wants to go on vacation and plan something with you, that's a circumstance. Like anything that you're doing in your life becomes a circumstance. Anything that has happened becomes a circumstance. So in using this model, I was listening to this podcast, and she talked about understanding that we are the ones that are responsible ultimately for what we're experiencing and what we're getting out of life. We're responsible for what we're thinking when someone says something mean. We're responsible for what we're feeling when someone does something rude. When life becomes inconvenient for whatever reason, we're responsible for what we take from that, right? And I've talked about in previous podcasts, like, be careful about what you choose to own. Be careful of the ownership that you take. So if someone has a lot of does a lot of name calling to you, and you're really starting to feel the effects of that, it's because you've taken ownership of their negative thoughts and emotions, and you've taken ownership of it as your own, and now you're carrying the weight of what that feels like because your thoughts are, adding to basically the circumstance, right? The circumstance would be that somebody says something mean to you, or somebody says something to you. That's important to know, that somebody says something to you. You interpret it as mean, okay? Like they could say, you've gained an extra few pounds. It's important to know that our circumstances are always neutral until we assign meaning to it. So if someone says, you've gained a few pounds, the way that I could give you an example of how this is neutral until we assign meaning is because of how different people could respond. If you've always been underweight, right? Like maybe you've battled bulimia or anorexia, or you've had body dysmorphia, and so you limited the amount of food that you would eat, and someone says to you, looks like you've gained a few pounds. As someone who's underweight and maybe they've been working to gain weight, that statement would feel like a compliment to them. It could feel really good. If they've struggled with their weight their entire life and all they've wanted is to gain a few pounds, and someone says, hey, it looks like you've gained a few pounds, you would be excited if you've been trying to gain that weight and it had been difficult in the past, right? If you're trying to overcome and become healthy, it would be a compliment for a lot of people in that situation. However, if you are someone that didn't want to gain weight and someone says, hey, it looks like you've gained a few pounds, you could interpret that completely differently. And you could be like, that is so rude. Don't comment on my weight. How dare you say that? How dare you go there? And you can have a different experience. So my point is that what we experience is very, very neutral until our brain gives it meaning. So you could have a circumstance that is the exact same for two different people. And one person may take that statement and be like, that feels really good. Thank you for noticing that I've been able to put on the weight because I've always struggled with that. Or you could be the opposite and be like, you're really, really rude, right? Like, why would you comment on me gaining a few pounds? How rude are you? So same exact circumstance where someone has said, you look like you've gained a few pounds, and one person takes it horribly and another person takes it as a compliment. Why is that? It's because of your thoughts. One person is thinking, that's really great. Thank you for noticing. One other person is thinking, you're really rude. How dare you say that? Based on what you're thinking, you're going to have a feeling. So the person that thinks it's rude is going to feel maybe a little insecure or angry. And the person that wanted to gain weight and thinks it's a compliment may feel accomplished. And if you go down to action, right, because based on what you're feeling, now you're going to take action. So the person that thought it was rude and is now maybe feeling insecure, their action might be, I'm not going to eat today, or I'm going on a diet. Okay. And then the result that they're going to get is that they're, trying to lose the weight, or maybe they do lose a few pounds, or maybe that action of, feeling insecure, feeling angry drives them into an action that would lead to the result of losing weight. Or maybe they feel depressed from that. And then their coping mechanism, so their action is to overeat, and sulk about what they were told and how they interpreted it. And now their result is that they gain more weight because they feel like they're in a cycle, versus the opposite, right? Sorry, I just hit the mic. So I'm sorry if you get a weird sound bite in there. But for the opposite, if they think, oh, wow, that's a compliment. I've been trying to gain weight, and they feel accomplished, that feeling drives your action. So maybe their action is to keep doing what they've been doing because it's working. So maybe they are eating a certain amount of calories and they're not working out as excessively, right? If maybe they've battled a condition in the past, and now their action is going to lead to the result, and the results may lead to them gaining a few more pounds and being very healthy, and also just feeling really good about where their body's at. Like the result just being overall happiness with how they look and feel. So you have circumstances that are both the same, because circumstances are always, 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 always neutral until we give them meaning. The reason that I'm sharing that with you is because this is where a lot of people go wrong when it's time to take responsibility, and the responsibility that's necessary for you to change your life. A lot of times we blame other people for how we're feeling or what we're thinking, and we believe that everything is someone else's fault. It feels easier to blame other people and make it their fault. So using that same circumstance of, it looks like you gained a few pounds, and having two people that take it totally differently, the person that's offended is more so going to be in a bad mood the rest of the day, and they're going to be like, thanks to that person, now I'm in a bad mood the rest of the day. My whole day is ruined. Whole day. But the person that thought it was a compliment may be in a very good mood, and they're like, oh my gosh, that compliment made my day. I'm going to be in a great mood the rest of the day. Someone recognized the work I've been working on for myself. Okay? And you, again, have two totally different results. And the person that feels miserable has blamed the person who said that for how they feel. Now, what's the problem with this? When we're not willing to take responsibility for what we are thinking or what we are feeling, the control to change how we're feeling is now placed in the other person's hands. So using the example of the person that said, hey, it looks like you gained a few pounds, and the person was offended, they've now blamed that person for their entire day. And when you do that and you blame someone for your mood for the rest of the day, you've officially given away your power. You no longer have the power to change your mood when you're blaming someone else. If you're going to blame them for how you're feeling, that also means you're putting responsibility on them to fix it. And a lot of times they don't know how to fix it, right? A lot of times they don't know that because they're not in your body. They actually cannot feel what you're feeling. They can empathize, they can say sorry, but at the end of the day, they actually can't jump in your body and say, oh, wow, Susie is feeling this way because of what I said. Again, the best that they can do is empathize and say, oh my gosh, I see that offended you. I'm so sorry, which may help. But you can also take radical responsibility for what you were thinking when they said that. And the point of this episode is to bring your awareness to that so that when something happens in your life, you can say, this is a circumstance that is very much neutral. That not every single person that would be in this circumstance would necessarily feel the same way or think the same things, right? There could be someone with, let's just say $150 in their bank account, and that could be it. And they are thinking, oh my God, I'm so poor. We're never going to make it. This is absolutely horrible. I'm not going to be able to feed my kids. I'm not going to be able to pay our bills. And based on that thought, those thoughts that they're having, it's going to create their feelings. Their feelings may be despair and fear, and just think of it. Like if you only had $150 in your bank account and nothing else, and there very well could be someone listening to this podcast where that's the case, think of how you feel. Well, your feelings are what create that emotional, energetic experience. Okay, so the energy you put out in the world is also based on your feelings. So if you're feeling fear and, despair, that again contributes to the action that you're going to take. And for some people, that might make them want to crawl in a ball and hide. It may make them feel like they just want to cry all day. It may also be a motivator for them to go out and do something about it. Everybody can respond very differently. And then that's going to create the results. Either they're going to fear it so much that their action is, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, and they're not taking any action. And the result is that $150 is all they have until it's gone. Or again, they could become super motivated and be like, I only have $150 and, I'm going to take that and use it for something that's going to help me, or I'm going to go get a better job, or I'm going to, there's solutions, and that's going to create the result that they ultimately get. And you can have a second person that has $150 in their bank account, and they could be like, oh my God, this is so much money. Like think about if you were living on the streets and someone handed you $150 and you've been living on the streets and trying to find a shelter to stay in at night. $150 to that person is going to feel like a really big win, and they're going to have different thoughts about it. And their feelings are probably going to be like gratitude, so thankful to have $150, so thankful. And because of feeling gratitude, that's going to contribute to their action. Maybe they take inspired action. Maybe they pay it forward in some way, in some small way. And that's going to impact their result. So the circumstance, again, is neutral. Both parties had only $150. One person thinks that's the end of the world, and one person thinks that is amazing and they're full of gratitude. But the circumstances are exactly the same. Okay? Everything in life is neutral until we assign meaning to it. Everything in life is neutral until we assign meaning to it. And the way in which we assign meaning to it is based a lot of times on our belief systems. So the reason that we do personal development work, and I want to tell you guys, if you don't really understand life coaching and why it's so beneficial and why it helps people who are having the hardest time in their life, it's because we are deconstructing old belief systems. We're deconstructing belief systems that do not serve you for your highest and greatest good. That's what a life coach does. They listen to all of the ways that you are self-sabotaging, whether that's in your relationship, right? Like your money experience, your business, your relationships with your kids, whatever it is, your job. I think it could be anything. There's coaches for everything. But what a coach does is listen to all of the things that you feel are a problem and that you feel are the reasons that you're getting the results. And they help you deconstruct those thoughts and really teach you how to take radical responsibility so that you're not blaming all of your external circumstances for where you're at, but you're learning to turn inward and see how you can be responsible. Because when you're the one that's being responsible for it, you have the ability to change it. So let's go back to that example of, it looks like you've gained a few pounds, okay? That person that was offended, they could take radical responsibility and be like, you know what? That didn't make me feel good. But the reason it didn't make me feel good was because I was thinking that what they said was very offensive. Or I was thinking that they weren't able to see that I've been working out every day. I am offended because XYZ. And take that power back, because once they can identify why they were hurt by that, they also have the responsibility to fix it. If you're going to wait for that person that you have no control over to apologize or to feel bad for what they said or to, kiss your feet because it made you so mad, you're going to be waiting a long time. That's why we become disgusted and frustrated with a lot of people, because we're like, hey, you should apologize. You should feel remorse for what you said. You should do this. You should do that. And we have this expectation for everybody acting a certain way so that we feel good. And I will talk about that actually next episode, why that is, why we have such strong expectations for how people should act and behave. I think that would be a really good episode, giving you all the inside scoop. But taking radical responsibility allows you the power and control to change it. So instead of thinking they're so offensive, they're so rude, I'm feeling so insecure now about my weight, you could have a completely different thought process of, they asked me, or they told me that it looks like I gained a few pounds. Like, why am I even thinking that that's offensive? Like, do the self-inquiry, do the self-awareness work, do the inner work. Like, why did I think that's offensive? Is that because I believe that I've not worked hard enough? Is it because I feel not good in my skin? So an example of this that I give all the time, I'm sure you all have heard it if you've been following me for a while and you're not new to my work or the podcast or my Facebook, but I give this example all the time of, if someone were to come up to me and say, Macy, you have the ugliest green nose and the most hideous purple ears, like purple elephant ears, right? If they were to come up to me and say that, I would look at them like they had 10 heads and I would be very confused and I'd probably laugh. I would be like, what do you mean I have the ugliest green nose and the biggest purple elephant ears? I don't believe that about myself. It's not true. If I look in a mirror, I don't see a big green nose and I don't see big purple elephant ears. I don't see that about myself. So having someone say that is really not going to offend me as much as I'm going to be like, what are they on? Why are they saying that? Like, that is so left field. Like, what is happening? But I'm not going to become offended by it because I don't have any belief system about it. I don't have any sort of thoughts about it other than I don't know what they're seeing. I'm confused because I don't know what they're seeing. But if someone came up to me and said, Macy, your podcast absolutely sucks and they should only be 10-minute episodes and no one really cares about the things that you're saying, right? If I had thoughts about my podcast being horrible or my podcast episodes being too long, that could really hurt me. And I might feel like they're the reason for my bad day. Like I could blame them. I could be in a bad mood the rest of the day and I could blame them and say, this is their fault, rather than take responsibility. If I'm doing the self-awareness work and the personal development work, I turn that back around on me. I don't want to give them control for how I am feeling. Actually, I do have a real life example of this. I will tell you guys just really quick. So months ago, I got an email about my podcast and about some reviews that had happened on another platform. It wasn't iTunes. I don't even know what it was on. And it was just giving me feedback about different people that have, rated the podcast. And I had someone comment that they hated my podcast because I talk too much about my week in the beginning and they just want to get straight to the content. Like they just want to hear the intro and they want me to get straight to the content. They don't want me to tell them about how my week went or share some of the things that have happened in my life or how I've been feeling. They didn't want to hear it. And so they were very vocal about it. And when I first read it, I was offended. I felt offended. The feeling was, I feel offended. And I feel sad that you don't like it, right? And it was because my thought was, they don't like my podcast. No, and then my thought spiraled into nobody likes my podcast. My podcast episodes are too long. Like my intro when I'm talking to people is too long. And all of those thoughts created this feeling of shame and guilt, like, it just made me feel really bad. And then the action, honestly, was inaction. I didn't want to record another podcast when I was in that headspace. I was like, I'm never going to record another podcast episode again because my podcast is clearly not helping people. And here's what's hilarious. I have a lot of reviews. I have a lot of 5-star reviews. This is like what I'm talking about when I say our brain is always like sabotaging. Like I have so many good reviews. I have people, strangers, you guys message me, which by the way, I love when a stranger finds me on Facebook or Instagram and they send me a message like, I'm a listener of your podcast and it has changed my life, or I'm a listener of your podcast and I love it. And I'm so thankful for it, right? I have a lot of experiences like that. And I've gotten one bad review that I've seen and my brain immediately was like, okay, everything about me sucks. Everything about my podcast sucks. I'm never going to record another episode because I clearly don't help anyone because I talk too much. That's why I tell you guys, having a coach or a therapist or someone in your corner to help pull you out of the self-pity storm is very, very beneficial. Because your brain left by itself is truly like a 2-year-old with scissors, running around with scissors. It's not useful. And I could have very easily been like, that one person is the reason I'm never recording another podcast episode because they ruined my mood, they ruined my day, they ruined the podcast. And what would that create for all of the people that do listen to my podcast? What would that create for me when I'm trying to grow and expand my coaching business and help as many people as possible? Right? This is what I'm talking about. You're either doing the work that's getting you to the next level or you are totally sulking and staying in a place where you're keeping yourself stagnant. And when you can create anything and everything you want in the world, it all comes down to your mindset over things. So the circumstance here was someone left a review. What my brain said was, that's a really bad review. And then that created my feelings, my actions, and my results. So what you do when you're doing this, self-inquiry of, okay, what's happening here? Instead, I was able to reframe my mindset of the circumstance is still the same. Someone left a review, right? I previously attached bad meaning to it, which was not giving me a good result. It made me want to quit my podcast. And I instead switched it to, okay, why did that offend me so much? Clearly because of what I was thinking about it. I don't want to give that person my power and completely ruin everything I've built, especially when 99% of people have amazing things to say about this podcast, right? That's the reality of it. And thank you so much if you've been a supportive listener and if you have stayed with me on the journey. I know that sometimes I can be mouthy and talkative. And it's so funny because a lot of times I'm like, I'm shy, I have nothing to say. And then as soon as you give me the mic, I'm like, listen up, I'll talk all day. But reframing my mindset really allowed me to take that same circumstance and instead of feeling like quitting my podcast, feeling like I can continue and I can take this as constructive criticism and I can think about why that hurt me and instead use that as a way to either A, fully love and accept myself and my podcast for exactly how it is, or use it as constructive criticism for improving my podcast based on some listener feedback. And the latter, taking responsibility, right, for my own emotions is 10 times more helpful than blaming that one person for not liking my stuff and then deciding I'm going to quit everything. Like, that is not useful at all. So a lot of us in life have very similar circumstances. And when we decide that we're going to blame other people for how we're feeling, we don't get anywhere because you're giving your power away to someone who doesn't care. If I was going to stay in that funky mood because of that one person, first of all, it doesn't even leave a name of who said it. And second of all, it would be near impossible to track them down. And then if I did track them down, it would, what am I supposed to say? I demand you apologize. You've ruined my mood. You made me want to quit my entire podcast. How dare you? What is the word I'm looking for? I was getting ready to say rebuke. Rebuke what you said, but I mean, what am I trying to say? Like, remove what you said. Oh my God. And change it so that I feel better. That would be like ultimately what I'm saying by giving them responsibility. Change your thought so I feel better rather than, hey Macy, how about you change your thought so you feel better? That would be much more productive. That would be 10 times faster. And by doing that work, you're not giving away so much of your control to external things that you can actually, create the life that you want to create. Funny thing. So I hope that this episode helps you in the importance of taking radical responsibility. Every time you feel a type of way, take radical responsibility and really do the work to figure out why. Every time you have a thought where you're like your brain's being mean or you're being hateful towards someone else, think, why am I doing that? Maybe I should look inside myself instead of blaming everybody else. Because every time I blame someone else, it's going to take 10 times longer for it to be fixed because they don't even know really what they've done wrong. And they actually can't fix it. And really, you guys, if you're waiting for everybody else to fix your mood, you're not getting their authentic self and learning how to live in a world where most people are authentic. Like, you're living in this world where you're almost in a way manipulating people to be what you want them to be so that you feel better. And if you really look at it, you don't want to do that for anybody else. You wouldn't want someone else to say, hey, be this way so I feel better. How about you don't be in this mood today so I feel better? How about you don't say this ever again so I feel better? Like, we wouldn't want someone treating us that way. We wouldn't want someone trying to make us into a robot to fit their need. We would really tell them, take responsibility for your own actions, your own feelings, and your own thoughts. So why do you do this? And sometimes it's really sneaky in how we do this. And a lot of times it comes with expectations. So if you find yourself being like, I'm always disappointed because I have high expectations, the likelihood is you're not taking responsibility for what you're thinking and what you're feeling and your actions. And that means you're not going to get the results that you want because you're not the one creating your life. You are waiting on external things to fix your world. If you want a better money situation and you want to make more money, you have to be willing to do that work. If you want better circumstances to live in a better place, to have the things you've always wanted, to buy a boat, to own a new car, to be a better person, to not become so upset with everybody else, to have a better mind, to not be as shy and be able to face your fears, you have to work on that. And that's why I love life coaching. Let's just be like really honest. That's why I love life coaching, because life coaches really take you from, where you're currently at, and they find out where you want to be. And what I tell my clients is I help them with the gap. There's the place where you're at and the place you want to be, and that space in between is a big gap. And I am trying to figure out why and how everything in that gap is creating what you currently have. And I help my clients look at that space in between, look at their gaps. And we start putting the pieces of the puzzle together and reframing their mind and totally rewiring their old beliefs and programming to create that result that they ultimately want. And instead of them sulking by themselves and feeling like, this is so hard, I'm never going to get this. When you hire a coach, you have someone holding you accountable. If you're showing up for your calls, if you're showing up for the program you invested in, you have someone holding you accountable. So I love that for myself because, like, for instance, big work for me has been working on my money, right? And I can either stay in my own mind and sulk about it and, be like, this is not exactly where I want to be. I'm doing well, but it's not where I want to be. And life is so hard. And I blame, coronavirus, and I blame my job, and and that is not serving anybody. Radical responsibility is turning inward and being like, oh, wow, what are my thoughts about this? What are my feelings about this? What energetic signature am I sending out, into the world based on how I'm feeling? Because that's what I'm going to get in return. How about I hire a coach that is doing the things that I want to have and the things that I desire in my life, even mindset-wise, so that way they can teach me exactly what I'm doing wrong. They can hold a magnifying glass to the areas where there's a big gap. There's a lot of space from, where I'm at to where I want to be. And they can help me look at that and hold my hand and cheer me on and coach me through it. That's the benefit of having a life coach. It's so very useful. And, I feel like I help my clients in an array of categories, but the biggest thing being the inner work, your personal development, your own self-healing, understanding your energy, your energetic signature in the world and why you're getting the results that you're getting, and the mindset mastery. Like, I love all of that. I love taking my clients and seeing them go from feeling so helpless to feeling very empowered and creating exactly what they want. Like, that just makes me super excited. So I hope that this episode of why it's important to take radical responsibility for your life, I hope that this was helpful. It is way too common that we create our own self-suffering because we think that things are not fixable. Everything is figure-outable. That's what I like to say. Everything is figure-outable. And a lot of times we create our own self-suffering by thinking that we're stuck forever where we're at and that nothing is going to change until external circumstances change it. Like, once I get the nice house, then I'll be okay. Once I get more money, then I'll be okay. Once, my parents stop being rude, then I'll be okay. Once blah, 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 then I'll be okay. And that is life happening to you, which is the most helpless place you can be. Life happens for us, and we have a responsibility to take so much radical responsibility that we see every circumstance in our life as happening for us. We take hold of that, and we create the life that we desire. So, I'll see you guys next episode, and I hope you all have an amazing week. Hey girl, did you know there's a place for you to continue this work outside of the podcast? Well, there is, and it's called Becoming Her. This is my online and ongoing coaching container for self-mastery. Everything takes place online and is the best value for your investment if you're wanting to work with me. This is for women that want to create lasting change by learning how to master themselves, their energy, their mindset, and how to do the deep inner work. It's a growing community where you're supported for life with live online trainings, access to all previously recorded content, and 2 one-on-one coaching calls with me per month. It's an investment where you can rest assured you'll have everything you need at your fingertips and where there's one primary goal: becoming your highest self. If this has been something you're looking for, join us and be a part of the growth. You can find out more information on MacyRenee.com.